Good evening. Yeah, sorry, I'm 2 minutes late. If anyone's out there listening, um, I have a busy evening this evening, so I just want to give an introduction to this series tonight. We'll start doing in text from our next session onwards. So I want to give an introduction. I want to give an introduction to the Orach HaShulchan in general. I want to give a introduction to Shabbos and the importance of Shabbos and why it's like from the mitzvahs in action that we do. It's one of the most fundamental mitzvahs in Judaism because even though it's an action, to refrain from doing any prohibited activity that's prohibited on Shabbos, and to just remember the Shabbos and to rest on Shabbos. But this practice is, totally reflective of principles of our faith, and therefore that's why our sages, gave the halacha of a person who would violate the Shabbos if he would be brazen enough to do it even publicly. So they gave him the same halacha as a heretic. Right? And we treat him like a Gentile because even though it's a mitzvah in action, but this mitzvah in action represents the principles of our faith, and therefore that's why a person who is Chal Shas prefer Hesia has the same halacha as a heretic. Uh, so we'll talk about that. First, before we get into Shabbos, I want to talk about the text that we chose to work with, the Orach HaShulchan. Well, first of all, it's a bona fide text. It's a text that was accepted and that you could definitely rely on. It's from one of the later day poskim. It was from pre-war Europe, but like rather late, only 100 years ago or so. It's like really from, he was in the same generation as the Chaim, wrote the Mishnah. Matter of fact, in some places in the Orach HaShulchan on Orach Chaim, he quotes the Mishnah Berurah. So there are those that say that therefore, if there's a machlokas between him and the Mishnah Berurah, you should go with him because he saw the Mishnah Berurah and he still ruled against him. So that fits with our principle that we generally, if we have a doubt who to rule like, because we don't know, we have no opinion of our own on what the law should be. One authority says one way, one authority says the other way. We say if they were from the same generation, they're in the same ranking of scholarship, right? Same ranking of scholarship. We say halacha is like the later one because he saw the opinion of the former one and he argued on it anyway. So the Aruch HaShulchan, in Orach Chaim, he saw the Mishnah Berurah. We have evidence. He quotes the Mishnah Berurah in certain places. So, so for that reason alone, they say one should rule like the Aruch HaShulchan over the Mishnah Berurah. But for sure, everyone agrees you could rely on the Aruch HaShulchan. What's so unique about this work is that it's not just that the author was a genius. See, generally, I say generally, very often an author is a genius, right? But he wrote a book that's simple, I guess you can see some fingerprints of the genius. He wrote a simple, straightforward book. So his full extent of genius doesn't come across in the book. And you have the rare occasion where it's the other way around. So that sometimes, guys, he's good, but for some reason he had special assistance from heaven and he outdid himself in the book that he wrote. Right? Goes both ways. At the risk of being a radical, I'm afraid to even cite examples because I might be condemned. But instead, it goes both ways. Sometimes, the guy is great, and the book doesn't reflect his greatness. Sometimes he just, with special assistance from heaven, he just maxed out and he just outdid himself and did an unbelievable book. Right? The Orach HaShulchan, he was a genius. He wrote this book, between questions that were posed to him So in between waiting, between one appointment was over, one din Torah, another din Torah started. He used to write in, like without even books in, right? He was the Rav of Novardik. Novardik is a very important town. So to be the rabbi of that town, you couldn't be a slouch because it's a very distinguished town. But the book is a work of genius. The book is an exceptional book because it is a masterpiece in the sense that he doesn't just tell you contemporary halacha, but he is a bridge through the generations, starting from the Mishnah and the Talmud, where the halacha originated, going through all the generations, what was said, how it was argued, but all in a very concise way, comprehensive yet concise, right? Thrashing through all the generations with his final ruling. So you get all the details from the original Talmudic sources down to his times, which was only 100 years ago. So he dealt with many of the modern day questions. And you get a whole synopsis of the whole halachic process and what the other, and a brief survey of the alternate opinions and why he ruled the way he ruled. Right? So it's getting like a lesson, not just in history of the halachic history, but it's the whole Talmudical halachic process. And that's why my Rebbe, or Yaakov Weinberg, Shiv Mary Saw, of blessed memory, used to paskin for us that one could fulfill his entirety of an obligation to know the Torah Shabbal Peh, the oral law, with Orach HaShulchan. Because the oral law, the Torah Shabbal Peh, has two parts to it, Mishnah and Talmud. Now, Mishnah and Talmud are not just, the famous Mishnah of Rav Yehuda and Nasi, Rav Yehuda the Prince, not just the Talmud that was finally codified by Ravina and Ravashi. These are two types of learning. Mishnah is published law. Published law. This is codified law that gets published on the books, as it were. Even if those books are meant to be memorized, not like Torah scrolls, but still, nonetheless, published law. Coined, published law is Mishnah. And of course, axioms that all law should be based on, that's also part of Mishnah. So axioms, final rulings. And Talmud is the whole process of, taking one of these laws from the books, researching its origins, how it was derived in the first place, and also calculating further, comparing and contrasting it to, first of all, rooting out problems if it contradicts a different law. But when that comes up, but the main part of Talmud is to research the origins of halacha and create new halacha, based on the precedents, modified halacha. So comparing and contrasting, it to other cases that arise to see whether it could be a precedent to rule on that or rule on that, or it's not a precedent to rule on that. And that we'll have to rule on those other things from a different precedent because this is not similar to those cases. Right? That's the Talmudic process, right? So and that's why our Mishnah and Talmud, if you're not very proficient in your learning, you can't really fulfill your obligation with them alone, because it's very rare that you know the Talmud so well that you could figure out all halacha. So the Rambam updated the Mishnah, the published aspect of the law, the Mishnah aspect of codified law, and he converted all the Talmudic rulings and the rulings of the Gaonim that came between the Talmud and the Rambam's time. That's his Mishnah Torah, and we'll prove in a Rambam series that we're going to start soon, also on this channel. So you should subscribe to this channel. It's a lot of good stuff you can't get anywhere else. Really, subscribe to this channel. Anyways, so the Rambam, his book is a way to comprehensively fulfill Mishnah. At least that was true for his day. The problem is that there's been new codified law since. It's been added to the body of codified law, and that's with the Shulchan Aruch and those that came after Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch is still 500 years ago or more, more than 500 years ago. There's been a lot of new codified law, so even the Rambam is not adequate for the Mishnah aspect. even though it's definitely a very heavy head start. But the Rambam, he updated the Mishnah. Right? There's still the Talmud. Now, the Rambam, for his day, recommended learning Rif, at least on the Mischas that the Rif wrote, because that's adequate. Because, like I alluded to in what I said just a couple of minutes ago, the Talmud has three functions, which two of them are its main function forever and all of eternity. And one of them is just by happenstance, only when necessary. The Talmud's two main functions are to research the origins of halacha and also to go through the exercise of comparing precedents to questions that arise and create rulings. Make rulings based on comparing and contrasting precedents to new cases that arise. Right? And the Rif does that gloriously. Just he doesn't bring the other opinions. The Talmud negate it. That's another function of the Talmud. The Talmud also is the technology to either root out, raise possibilities and eliminate them as not being valid possibilities, or to sometimes decide. It was a debate of how to understand and to rule between the two. So the Rambam stresses regarding this aspect of resolving doubts and all the argumentation to refute opinions that are refuted. That's only if, that's necessary. You have another opinion that may be right, may be wrong. So you got to argue it out. Argue it to the point that one opinion falls out and the one that, the one that's deemed correct is left standing, as everything else has been concretely refuted, right? Or, to resolve doubts. Read it this way, let's have all the argumentation to show, no, this is the only one correct way to read it, or the most reasonable way to read it. But that's only if the need arises, because you have another opinion that has to be contended with. You have a doubt that has to be resolved. But if no doubts, no alternate opinions, so, every codified law look for its origins, and then afterwards compare that precedent, compare it and contrast it to questions that arise. So he says the two main functions of the Talmud you could fulfill with Rif. The Talmud had a great deal of extra argumentation, but that was out of necessity which was necessary at the time of the Talmud. And the Talmud had to make a case for itself, to prove that, its rulings are the correct ones. Right? So the Ram says your obligation to do the Talmud type learning you could fulfill with Rif. Right? But you have to also be mindful. Maybe Rif wasn't always right, in the Rambam's opinion. So compare and contrast them to what I say. And if you see that I'm saying differently than the Rif, than the way the Rif explained the Talmud, my ruling is not in accordance with the way the Rif explained the Talmud. In that case, go back to the original Talmudic source. But otherwise, as a rule, work with Rif. That's adequate. Right? So, and we, for that reason, for this sheet of the Rambam, we will also in this channel have a Rif Seder. We will go through all Rif, and I'll try to add to it, what later authorities said, right? Because that is much more realistic, for on a limited time to learn well and absorb and retain. You may ask, there's a lot of it that don't have Rif. Indeed, in the Rambam's day, he would have told you on those Misechtas where there's no Rif, you're going to have to learn the Talmud itself. Right? But, since then, the Chafetz Chaim, the author of the Mishnah and Talmud, he gave us Likutei Halachos, where he filled in the Rif on all the things that the Rif didn't write on. So now between Rif and Likutei Halachos, you have the whole concise Talmud, where you have just which fills the main functions of Talmud, knowing the origins of the law and going through the basic comparing and contrasting to compare precedents to questions that arose. Right? All the other opinions and doubts that were eliminated were just not brought down because, once you know the conclusions, you don't have to contend with the alternate opinions or alternate possibilities. And this is, this was the feeling of the Rambam. Obviously, the Chafetz Chaim agreed with it. He continued the Rif Venter, and on that basis, we're not going to do Daf Yomi on this channel. Plenty of Daf Yomi channels. Instead, we will endeavor to follow the Daf Yomi cycle with Rif. Okay, for those who want. All right, so, but here's the thing. With the Orach HaShulchan, you fulfill your obligation of Mishnah and Talmud all in the same book. What a wonderful book, right? Because he gives you the published law of all the generations, but he also gives it to you with the synopsis of the whole Talmudic process of how we arrived at that conclusion, or a little synopsis of how he arrived at his conclusions. So you have the best. Maharshiva used to rule that another thing that one could do to fulfill is the entirety of his obligation to learn Torah Baal Peh, be it the Mishnah aspect, be it the Talmud aspect. One could fulfill both aspects with this wonderful book, the Orach HaShulchan. And the Orach HaShulchan actually went beyond, and he actually wrote on the entirety of Torah, not just on what the Shulchan Aruch wrote. There's Orach HaShulchan Asid. The only criticism of that book is that it was unedited. It was published posthumously, so it might be here and there. The author may not have, if he would have lived to edit it, things may have been a little bit different. But it's a great book, so we're going to work with Orach HaShulchan for Hilchos Shabbos. Right? So now we're working for a bona fide text. Now we chose Hilchos Shabbos because, first of all, it's something every Jew has to know. And it's something fundamental for our faith that we're going to discuss in just a minute. All right? But, another reason why we're hopping on Hilchos Shabbos, that right now there's a new hype, and I mean that in the positive way. Smichas Chaver, right? The OU and YU and many shuls are participating in a learning curriculum, learning the laws of Shabbos. Now they're doing it their way. I'm not sure how they're doing it. I want to work with a classic text, that for sure can be relied on, and a classic text that is so perfect. It's Mishnah and Talmud all wrapped up in one. I want to work with Aruch HaShulchan. But right now, there's a widespread movement in Klal Yisrael, around America anyway, to learn the material of Hilchos Shabbos, and that's part of the Smichas Chaver program. And they get a level of ordination. In my day, what's called Rabbinical. My day, so it's not Yoreh, which is the standard rabbinical ordination, which involves. We have another Orach HaShulchan class that you could use to get Yoreh. We're learning Yoreh with. So generally, in classical Smicha involves the laws of Kashrut and Nida, and the laws of Shabbos. But Smichas covers laws of Shabbos alone, and so now you could be tested and get that smicha, get that level of ordination from the rabbis who are doing the testing prep program, because this Aruch HaShulchan is more than adequate to give you that material that people will be tested on for this level of ordination, smichas chaver. Okay, so now getting back to, I'm sorry, I'm speaking at great length, but this is such a wonderful introduction. And indeed, the Orach HaShulchan, the very first chapters that we're going to do there, in the very first simon, he's going to give a widespread introduction to all the laws of Shabbos. It's a wonderful book, written so systematically and comprehensively. As far as the in general introduction to the laws themselves, Aruch HaShulchan does a brilliant job himself at the beginning of Hilchos Shabbos. Let him speak for himself. I just want to talk philosophically, even though he touches upon it, he doesn't deal with it, in the depth I want to give it in the next few minutes. Right, that Shabbos is, the significance of the mitzvah is to profess the faiths of the Torah. Now, there's very few mitzvahs like that. This mitzvah is shakul keneged kol mitzvot. It's like equivalent to like all the mitzvahs all together. There's very few that are like it. Right? There's bris milah is up there. Right? That person who really doesn't want to have a bris milah, like really rejecting his Judaism altogether. Right? And there's also Pesach, Korban Pesach. Pesach, Shabbos, and Milah. these three things are three parallel mitzvahs that all have to do with belonging to God. Belonging to God. God loves us. He chose us. That's why He gave us. God chose us and made us a Jewish people by taking us out of Mitzrayim on Pesach. When He chose us, right? God designated us as chosen people with the sign that He gave Avraham Avinu, Bris Milah. At and that's why there's like a interrelation between these three mitzvahs. Pesach itself is called Shabbos. The laws of Shabbos. Start counting Mimachar Shabbos, day after Shabbos. I'll tell us was Pesach. Pesach is also called Shabbos, right? Because Shabbos is the pure entity of holiness God bestowed upon us. We ourselves had to be a special type of people to merit to have the gift of Shabbos. That's Pesach, right? When we were chosen. But even Pesach has to be empowered by Shabbos, because Shabbos is like the elemental creation of holiness. Right? It is the day of sanctity and blessing. So there's, for reasons that you could find on my website, we have. Allow me to take a minute to advertise. I have a website so full of material, right? And I have material on this issue of the interrelationship of Pesach and Shabbos. So that's the idea of Shabbos Hagadol, Shabbos before Pesach. Right, that's the Shabbos that empowers Pesach. That before we actually had a Pesach, and we're actually chosen as and separated as the people that get the Shabbos, we had a precursor for Shabbos. As I said, there's a chicken and egg problem. Shabbos is like the elemental holiness that the Yom Tovim are based on, or derived. Like Shabbos is like the white light. Every Yom Tov is like a color on the spectrum that's included in white light. Right, but Pesach is key because it made us the Jewish people. We're separated from the Egyptians and all the nations of the world, and made us the separate nation that's special that can get Shabbos. We can't have Pesach without Shabbos either. So that's the idea of the Shabbos Hagadol that we mark, the Shabbos before Pesach. That in those days, since Shabbos wasn't given yet, we had a ritual to supplement, to represent Shabbos, and that was to separate the Paschal lamb. And the Korban Pesach was separated on the 10th of Nisan, which we see retroactively was Shabbos. It was Shabbos, but Saturday didn't have its significance then. But we saw that it was like secretly tapping into the Shabbos factor. That Shabbos separates us from all the other nations, because all the other nations, they're allowed to imitate our Yom Tov, but they cannot do Shabbos. Shabbos is special only for Jewish people. But a B'nai Noach that want to keep Judaism as it speaks to the Gentile can imitate all our Yom Tovim, but they cannot do Shabbos. So forth. Right. All right. So Shabbos and Pesach now Bris Milah. You can't bring if there's anyone in your family or you own a slave that's not circumcised, you can't bring your Korban Pesach. So that's why also in Egypt they have to go through circumcision right there on the eve, or right before they brought the Korban Pesach. Right, they have to do it together. So Bris Milah, because these three things go together, and that's the secret that Bris Milah on the 8th day for a kid who's born the normal way, right, a boy born the normal way. If his 8th day comes out on Shabbos, you do a Bris Milah even on Shabbos. Bris Milah is that holy that that it's up there, and that's why it's like Shabbos. Right? It's really not even. Because, as Reb Tzadok HaKohen explains, what's prohibited Shabbos is doing our work. God's work is permitted, right? Like in the Beis Hamikdash, they still brought the sacrifices like regular. Our work, we have to cease from our work because we get beyond our world. Bris Milah is so holy; it's got the essence of being Jewish. It's not called our work; it's holy work. So it's like the korbanos, the sacrifices that are also brought on Shabbos. Shabbos sacrifices. Right? It's right up there with what Shabbos is about. The sacrifices of Shabbos you could bring on Shabbos, Bris Milah you could do on Shabbos also. It's not even called your malacha. It's like right up there with the essence of Judaism. So and that's it's alluded to in Shabbos. They're just like being uncircumcised will stop a person, bar a person. Anyone in his family being uncircumcised will bar him from bringing his korban pesach. Also, someone who's uncircumcised, it ruins his Shabbos. That's alluded to in when we say Shabbos Shacharis. And you can't really dwell in the peace of Shabbos, anyone who's uncircumcised. Anyone who's uncircumcised. So generally the uncircumcised refers to God. But it means a Jew that also is uncircumcised because he rejects circumcision. He also, even if he keeps Shabbos, he's not really hooked into Shabbos because Shabbos has to do with the essence of his Judaism, and he's detached from not being circumcised because Shabbos is aside from it's a special bond between God and us, and He gave it to us as a special gift to us. But it professes the faith that God created the world. Right? The basic faith that there's only one creator of the world, and that the world is created. It wasn't always here. Right? But those are the faiths that we profess on Shabbos, that there is a creator and the world is a creation. Right? Let's do with the basic approach of Judaism, that there is a creator and he is the one and only absolute truth because everything else was created by him. So he's the one and only absolute truth. So Shabbos brings all this out. And since it has to do with the essence of Judaism, you know what else was given on Shabbos? The Torah. Shabbos and the Torah. But Shabbos represents the essence of Judaism. Shabbos is a day, a time that represents not just another mitzvah of the Torah, but the Torah itself. And that's why the Torah is given on Shabbos. It empowers Pesach, but Pesach is also very special because it actually made us the Jewish people that could receive the Shabbos. That's why Shabbos, now of course, if a person, God forbid, breaks Shabbos, couldn't help himself, that's one thing. But if he does it in public without any shame, that shows that he doesn't care about Shabbos whatsoever. So that in that case, that non-observance of Shabbos strips him of his Judaism, as it were. And the person who flagrantly violates Shabbos publicly, we treat him as if he's a goy until he repents. He could repent and he doesn't have to reconvert or anything. He could just repent. But until then, we treat him like a goy because he's rejected the essence of his Judaism. Now, that's how stringent Shabbos is. So we treat him like a goy if he touches non-cooked wine. That wine is prohibited to be drunk. Right? We cannot consider him a valid witness for anything. And he can't cook for us either if he's a chef. Because right? So that's the importance of Shabbos. Shabbos is like one of the mitzvahs that has to do with the whole Jewish ethos, right? The whole Jewish identity. It's not just another mitzvah. It's like a meta mitzvah. It empowers all the other Yom Tovim. It is an expression of our faith that there is a God and he is the one and only absolute truth because everything else was created by him. So he's the only one absolute. So there's a creator and everything else is a creation. And for that reason, the Torah was given on Shabbos. The essence of God and that He is the one and only. That those are the beliefs that Shabbos, professes. And not only that, it works the other way. To the extent that a person keeps Shabbos in earnest, it will give him faith. It will give him faith. And that's why these two things that are interrelated, the Shabbos and the Torah itself, these two mitzvahs are called candles. Now, the Menucha V'Kedusha, a student of Rav Chaim Volozhiner, writes this. Right, that there's these two mitzvahs are experiential, like candles. They don't just give you knowledge, but they open your eyes. They let you see things in a new light. They say, as a person who learns Torah, it doesn't just it's not just information, but as we pray, the higher it is, enlighten our eyes with your Torah. It opens the eyes to a person who's a Ben Torah, who internalized Torah, looks at life differently. He doesn't just believe in God. He sees life in a manner where he knows there's a God, right? and he knows that everything other than God was created by God and is governed by God. Right? That's if a person learns Torah, and that's how the Torah affects his mind, his heart, and his perspective. Shabbos is the same thing. Shabbos is the person who will have, they'll have such a spiritual surge. He'll just know there's a God, know that everything's by divine providence. He'll feel God. As tis'ana Hashem, the mitzvah of owning Shabbos is to light up the pleasure centers. Eventually, for purpose of being elevated, you'll have joy of clinging to God. We could attain on Shabbos. That's Olam Haba, the world where it's just God and His Majesty, and all we do there is learn Torah. That is called Yom Shekulo Shabbos Umenucha L'chaya Olamim. Right? That is called the eternal Shabbos. And the Shabbos that we celebrate on earth is a spark of that ultimate reality. Just God, His divine presence that we're allowed to enjoy, which includes the Torah that's revealed to us at that time. Shabbos is that day. It's to do with the very core and ultimate goals of Judaism. Okay, so we're going to be starting with this next week. Subscribe to this channel. How will you know when I'll do another installment of Orach HaShulchan on Shabbos, and get your Smichas Chaver if you're not subscribed. If you're subscribed, you'll know when something is being posted, and you'll be able to, be on top of it. There's another installment, and you'll say that. But this channel is such a great channel. Like I said, we're doing Aruch HaShulchan on Yoreh, where you can get full Smicha, full ordination. If you know that material also. We do Jewish philosophy. We have a Kuzari series on this channel. We have a Mar Nevuchim series on this channel that we started already. We do Derech Hashem of the Ramchal. We're going to be doing Mesilas Yesharim. And we will also be doing Rif, and we'll also be doing soon an Iyun Shir, real Yeshiva Shalomdus. So there's so much. This channel is like everything you learn in Yeshiva, right? So don't miss out. Check out our website, Rabbinical.com. There's a wealth of material there, audio, video, and written that you could print out. Subscribe to this channel and have this wonderful full online yeshiva experience, full yeshiva experience online. To the point, if you know the material well, you can even get rabbinical ordination. Right? So subscribe to this channel. Hit that subscribe button. Right? So this was just by way of introduction. Right? Everyone have a good night, and subscribe so you'll be abreast of the situation of when new things are posted. Right? Take care.